I want to talk to you today about stop believing some myths that are out there. And in fact, let me just share my screen. I'm going to share my slides and we'll dive right into this. But there's myths out there in everything you do, right? And so in government contracting, there are certain myths, and that's just a way of saying, I don't want to. I'm not trying to point anyone out or any advice out. I'm just trying to say this thing, if you happen to believe it, I'd like you to see it from a different angle, right? I'm not attacking what I'm about to share. What I'm really trying to say is, hey, here's some way you might be looking at it. Take those glasses off, put on these other glasses, and you'll see it differently. And so we're going to dive into those. Some people call them myths. I'll call them that. I just want to make sure I'm not like suggesting that I'm attacking anything you've ever heard before. These are just ideas that I'd like to share, and we'll tackle them. Actually, the myths we're going to cover are these 5 that you see right now, right? Federal agencies must meet their small business goals. That's a flat out myth. I hear people think that has to happen, and we all do, right? Every year, 30,000 plus companies come into government contracting, and we're told that, or we believe it, or we think it totally makes sense, right? They have a goal, they should be meeting it. No. So we'll talk about that one. The second myth is, and this is a big one to me, is where people say you should sell to state and local and commercial before you come federal. I don't believe that at all. I'm going to sit there and make a case for it and why you should think about federal only if you're going to come into federal. Third myth I want to talk about is government contracting is complex. To be fair, sure, it's complex, but so is learning to ride a bike for the first time. If you're a brand new adult going to ride a bike, right, that's complex. You have to figure out balancing. It's scary, and especially the older you are, the more you don't want to fall. The younger you are, the more you're okay falling. Fourth one, agencies don't like to work with small businesses. That is I think that's less of a myth and more of a belief we start getting when we feel like we're not winning. But the reality is the opposite. The government absolutely wants to work with smalls, and I'll talk a lot about that. And the last one, if we have time for this, is this idea that if you get your 8A certification or if you land a particular contract vehicle, that's the golden ticket. You're going to start winning. That's not the case at all, right? That's a myth or a misunderstanding about the value of 8A certifications or contract vehicles. They are certainly valuable, but they're more like the starting point rather than the end point. And so I want to kind of tackle those. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. It's why I co-founded GovCon in a Box with 4 others, so that we could bring the tools and the services to the process that I've been teaching for 8 years or 6 years, right? And so that's a really important aspect of what we're doing. You can check out govconinabox.com to see some of those tools. We got more things dropping this week. If you haven't already subscribed to our newsletter, we're getting close to 20,000 subscribers, which is super huge accomplishment for us. We're very proud of it. And the reason Government Contracting Success newsletter is growing so fast and reaching so many people is because we put out really good content. We let people know how they can succeed in government contracting. We give you actual tips on how you can make something happen and get more visibility with the federal buyer. So subscribe to our newsletter. And then last thing, for those of you who register for training, thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't actually give people a lot of notice, so it's great that we're out there. But tomorrow's training is around PWSs and statement of work. And I got this question a few days ago. So this is the beauty of planning this week's training, basically over the weekend. Or late last week, somebody was talking about, I'm trying to go after, I think it was one of our customers, in fact, I'm trying to go after these expiring contracts, and I'm trying to find the old PWSs so that I can learn about it. I can maybe begin to prepare, et cetera, before any new requirement documents come out. And so tomorrow, I'm going to give you some tips on how I find those documents. And it goes from here's the easy basic steps to here's the most creative ones. And so join me tomorrow, register, let us know that you're coming. I haven't updated this. I will update it tomorrow because I know we have new members in the club, but I did want to just say congratulations to the small businesses in the federal market who are in the 100 club. So govconinabox.com, we provide this visibility score, this federal visibility score. How visible are you to federal buyers? and you get a scoring from 0 to 100. And these 58 companies are the only companies out of 360,000 that have a perfect 100 score. This means you're visible in the federal buyer's tools, not in my tools. Our tools are just designed to help you see further into the federal government, to see how the federal buyer sees you. And so I'm really excited about the 100 Club. Make sure you go to GovCon in a Box. That should be done. It's free, it's easy, and you can get it all done yourself. You don't have to pay people to help you go forward if you want to move forward fast. Okay, let's start driving into the myths. The first myth I have here is that federal agencies must meet the small business goals. And one thing I will tell you, none of these 5 myths are in any particular order and weighting. But if they were, this one would be a pretty big one to me. In 2018, I wrote an article, and then I decided not to publish it because I thought it'd be too inflammatory. But the title of the article in LinkedIn was Marine Corps Surrenders. And I was like, what? And the reason I titled it Marine Corps Surrenders is because it really frustrated me as a small business owner and as a person who just started the GovCon chamber to see that the Marine Corps in 1 year had a goal for, let's say, HUBZone, and it was 1.8%. And they missed that goal. So the next year, they lowered the goal to 1.5 and gave themselves an A grade. They're not unusual. That happens across the federal government all the time. My point is not to knock the Marine Corps. And of course, the Marine Corps is not going to surrender. They're the first ones in, last ones out. I got it, Marine Corps. But my point was, how could leadership lower that goal? In sales, I can't go to my boss and go, hey, I'm going to lower my sales goal, right? But it's naive of us to think that the federal agencies must meet these small business goals. They don't. They don't have to. In Pirates of Caribbean, the captain of the Black Pearl says, they're more like guidelines than actual rules. They're more like suggestions than goals, right? If the government had to meet goals, if they must meet those small business goals, then they would. But they don't. Even when they do, those goals are being met across the board. For example, they might give themselves credit for meeting a HUBZone goal, even though the contract was awarded to an 8A company. They took credit for the 8A, but because the companies were HUBZone as well, they gave themselves credit on the HUBZone. I don't care. That's just how they do their thing. But it's really important to remember this, because what I would like to tell you is pursue the agencies that are meeting their small business goals. There are many agencies out there that truly do care about women-owned small businesses or veteran-owned, HUBZone, 8A firms, as well as the broader small business community. We are not the backbone of America as small businesses, I like to say. We are America, right? And so that's really important, that if you're going to sit there and have a certification or be a small business and try to pursue small business set-aside type contracts, make sure you're pursuing the agencies that actually care. And it's pretty easy to find that out just by looking for the ones that are meeting their small business goals. I like to say meeting or exceeding. If you go there, it means they already like you and you go forward. But if you go to somebody who's missing their goals, then you're trying to convince them to meet their goals or to buy from women-owned small businesses, while also trying to convince them that your solution is the right thing. That's too much convincing. It's better to go somewhere where they like and value women-owned small businesses, and then show them that you're the best of those women-owned small businesses for what you sell. And that's my second recommendation. Pursue agencies that are buying what you sell. If you look in and they're buying a lot of, I was going to say rebar, if you know what that is, but if they're buying a lot of road paving services, then that's the agency you want to go to if that's what you sell. Why would you go to NAVWAR, Naval Information Warfare Command in the Navy, to sell road paving services? That's not what they buy, right? So you're going to the wrong place. Compared to, if you are an IT company, go there and maybe go less to the Army Corps of Engineers, who does a ton of construction. Of course, they buy IT, but you get my point. And so keep that in mind. Agencies don't really need to meet those small business goals. Second myth, small should start local, state, or commercial instead of federal. I see this all the time, and it really, really frustrates me. I see it institutionalized as a piece of advice that is sometimes done by SBDCs or PTACs, et cetera. And it's like, stop that. I've sold to nonprofit. I've sold commercial, meaning door-to-door vacuum cleaners. I sold to nonprofits. I've sold to a commercial, small commercial and billion-dollar commercial firms, state, local, and federal. And I'm telling you right now, selling to the federal market is the easiest. The poor advice, or what I disagree with, I don't want to knock the advice, but what I wholeheartedly disagree with is that you want to go to local and commercial and learn and then come federal. Nowhere is it as easy to be a business owner as it is in the federal market. Is the timeline a little longer? Sure. But everything else is completely transparent. The rules are documented in the FAR. We have a FPDS where you can see all the contracts that have been awarded before. You can see SAM where there's opportunities you might pursue. You can go in and find all these buyer names, numbers, and emails. You can find all your competitors, 350,000 plus small businesses who are in the federal market. So the amount of information, the visibility, transparency in the federal market is so welcoming to a small business. There are so many organizations, the small business centers from the SBA, right? The PTAX or Apex Accelerator, SCORE, all these different entities, the GovCon chamber, right? GovCon in a box. There's all of us out there in the federal market trying to help you improve. And so I believe the federal market is the easiest. And here's my recommendations to you. If you're small and you're just getting started, or you've been around 4 years and you don't have the traction you really wanted, rethink this and start with subcontracting to other small businesses. Find companies that are doing, let's say, 5 million plus, and see if you can't subcontract with them. If I was doing SharePoint, I would find a company doing network engineering. Here's why. Network engineering, they're in supporting an agency in the IT world. Networking is what that is, right? Or network engineering. And so they know basically the people I'm trying to reach for software development. And so I can team up with them and say, hey, how about we pursue stuff together? I'd love to learn from you for a couple of years, or I'd love to sub with you long term. We just keep working together, competimates. So pursue subcontracting. The second one is I really want you to perfect your FPDS skills. So the Federal Procurement Data System is where you can find contracts that were awarded. Learn that tool. Understand it better than I understand it. Read the manual, read the FAQs, talk to them. They have regular training that is in there. There's a guy in the government contracting world, I don't have his book, but Mike Lejeune, he did a training in there I saw. I don't know if it was there or USA Spending, but same kind of thing. There's people who are really helping you perfect that skill. But that is a tool that is as important as your car. You would perfect your driving skills to get to and from work, perfect your FPDS skills to understand where contracts are being awarded, who's awarding them, and then begin to network on a regular basis to try to reach those people. Networking, even something as simple as today's training, right? I have, looks like we have 80 people in the training, 40 people registered, 80 people showed up. That's a network. That is your community. Look into the community. Actually, if you haven't done this already, put your company name, put your core competency, 2 or 3 words, right? Don't put a bunch of stuff, because when you put a bunch of stuff in chat, we all just pass it by. We don't mean to be ignoring it, but it's too much text. But 2 or 3 words, I look and I go, oh, road paving services, oh, cybersecurity, right? And then I dig a little further. I reach out and I say, hey, Jane, I see that you were doing cybersecurity. You were on Neil's training. I'd love to sit there and catch up for 15 minutes and see if it makes sense to, begin to build a working relationship together. And so network daily here or other opportunities that you have. But the myth is you should start small, local, state, and commercial. I think that's totally a myth that is broken by the easiness of the federal market. So speaking of the federal market being easy, another myth that's out there is that federal government contracting is complex. And yes and no, all right? It's a myth, so I'm saying no, but yeah, sure, it's complex. But so is everything. I have 10-year-olds. I remember teaching them how to tie their shoes. Do you know how complex it is to tie laces and pull them through and then put bows? Literally, when I was in the Army, they taught us how to lace up our boots properly, how to tie them properly. And you would think, that's the Army. I went hiking and did a bunch of hiking trips when I was a lot younger. And when I would go with professional hikers, we'd stop and they'd be like, hey, let me talk to you about your socks. Let me talk to you about your boots. Make sure they're tied. For example, if you take 2 laces and you do it once, that's one thing. But if you do it twice, then it doesn't slip. And so you're learning these things that are out there. Yes, hiking is complex. Riding a bike is complex. Government contracting is complex. Fine, everything is complex, right? But it's no more complex to do government contracting than it really is anything else. The cool thing is, the truth is that the federal market is very transparent. There are so many people who will guide you. Compared to riding a bike, you might be embarrassed to ask people around you, hey, can you teach me to ride a bike? But in government contracting, it's the very way we do the federal market is we're all helping each other. So I recommend that you team as a subcontractor, similar to what I mentioned before, but do this for several years just to even learn the process. How do I write proposals? What should I put in the pricing section? Are there FAR clauses that matter to what I'm doing? How do I bill the customer an invoice? How do I deal with employees that are coming on? How can I get financing? Your network, these other government contractors who are, your prime and you're subbing under them, they will teach you. They're happy to teach you. We all have been there before. This is why I say sub with smalls. Larges really don't want to teach you. They will. You might find a nice person, but for the most part, small businesses know what it's like to be you, and they'll help you. Second thing is meet regularly with the 7 mentors. You can go watch previous training on this that I've done. I've done a lot, but there are the 7 mentors that I coined the term basically. And really what it means is the SBA and small business professionals. It means the PTACs, the Apex accelerators now, the PCRs, the small business professionals, the GovCon chamber, right? There's 7 of these mentors who will guide you through the process. And so that we will take this complex thing called government contracting and make it easier by giving you bite-sized tasks or action items that you can do to move forward. The last recommendation is make sure you're pursuing only one agency at a time. You need to focus to get good at something. So if you think about business development and capture and sales, focusing on one agency is the best thing. If you're just starting up, focus on one agency. If you've got 2 salespeople, maybe one of them can focus on one agency, another on another, but do not let them focus on 2. For example, Department of Homeland Security, even in there, I would like you to go down to FEMA or something, right? But even that department level is fine as long as you don't have a single person trying to do DHS and HHS. You just won't do well, and you'll just go for years like all of us do. And then you're like, I need to focus. Yeah, you do. It's like, and I've been there, right? I've been there trying to sell everywhere, and I'm like, focus. Okay, next myth. So this one is this 4th one, I think it is. Agencies don't like to work with small businesses. I hear this most when people are frustrated that they couldn't get past the good old boy system. They always want to work with the incumbent. They like the largest, et cetera. And so people like to say that federal agencies don't like to work with small businesses. Since 2018, I've been saying that there is no conspiracy in the federal government to hold smalls down. In fact, if there's anything, there's a conspiracy to help us up. There's a Small Business Act. There's all these small business goals that they may or may not care about, but there's all these small business activities. There's small business set-asides. Agencies don't want to work with smalls. They don't want to work with larges. Agencies, the truth is, want to work with businesses that can help them accomplish the mission. So when you think about the Department of Veterans Affairs as an example, their mission is veteran healthcare, veteran care, but in this case, I tighten it up even more, veteran healthcare. Down at the hospitals that the VA has, they need to make sure the veterans are taken care of. So whatever you do, they don't care if you're small or big. They don't care if you're a veteran-owned or a woman-owned small business. What they care about is, can you accomplish the mission? Now, when you've got that stuff down, then you start seeing yourself different. You start seeing your company, and you should see yourself through these glasses, if you will, as a company that can help them deliver the best care to veterans. So I put a couple of recommendations here. The first one is, I want you to remember that you are a speedboat. This isn't just my opinion. It's what we talk when I talk with contracting officers and program offices all the time. A large business is a massive, the world's biggest cargo ship there is. And we small businesses, we are speedboats, right? We both can go from point A to point B. Just the small business can turn on a dime with the agency. So imagine you got a large business going forward, and it takes them forever to turn and get legal approval and marketing approval to make any changes on behalf of the government. And then there's the small business, and COVID pops up, or Ukraine war, or any of these other changing priorities that the government has. There's this term about speed of relevancy, moving with a purpose. A contract that is so large and a company that's so large that it can't change, can't help the government with its mission. And the mission changes depending on the day. It does not depend on whether we thought it out 5 years in advance. There's a great thing that, I'm butchering the quote, but something like, all plans are good until the first bullet flies, or something like that, right? And it's this idea that, yes, we could set out a long-term strategy, but the government needs you to be able to respond to what's happening right now, not what they thought would happen in 5 years. And you have that ability as a small business. See yourself as somebody who's flexible and changeable with their priorities, and not as this lowly small business, right? Because any one of us who were not in a small business would be working for the government or the large. So we clearly are competent enough. The second thing is make sure you're showing up, right? When you think about agencies wanting to work with smalls, they need smalls to come in and prove that they can do the job. They can support the mission. And so I like to say, make sure you're visible or showing up in the RFI process, this acquisition life cycle, where in the beginning, when the government has an idea and they're exploring it, or they're exploring, are there small businesses that would respond if we put an RFP out? That's the market research phase. So sources sought, RFIs, respond to those. Don't ever listen to somebody say, don't respond to it. If you respond to RFIs and sources sought that are in your space, first off, you should be able to respond in a day, 2 days at most. So what's the waste of time if you could win a multi-million-dollar contract off a 2-day response? Second thing, again, remember, it's in your sweet spot. When you respond to an RFI, for the most part, it's going to the people you want to see it. These are people who are going to sit there and want you to come in and talk about that need, or say, well, you know what, they're not a fit for this need, but I like what they're doing. Let's bring them in next time. Or maybe they'll just remember that they had this one respondent, you, who was talking about something that was interesting. It just wasn't totally a fit at the time, right? When you show up in an RFI, that is like having a meeting without going to the meeting. If you can have a meeting with a program manager, would you want to? I would. So if I respond to an RFI that's going to be read by the program manager, then that's the same as meeting with them, or the next best thing to meeting with them. Actually, it might be better than meeting with them, because I might screw up the meeting if I show up in person. The third recommendation here about making sure your agencies can see you so they can work with you as a small business is just increase your visibility score. Go to GovCon in a box. I told you already, govconinabox.com. Right there on the homepage, you can say, number 2, get my visibility score. Inside of a minute, you can find your visibility score. And if you just log on, I just protect your data. If you log on with just an email address, I think you're able to see what needs to be done, what you could do in the next day or two to increase your visibility score, which maximizes your visibility with federal buyers, which increases the chance that they'll work with you or they'll talk to you about their needs. Okay, last one here is, this last myth is, and this is a misunderstanding, I think, in a big part, right? Is that if I get my 8A certification, I'm off to the races. I got 9 years of them handing me contracts. Or if I get my contract vehicle, I'm off to the races. I got whatever along 5-10 years on that contract vehicle, and they're just going to be throwing contracts my way. A lot of us get our GSA schedule thinking that. Literally, I had GSA reaching out to me saying they're very concerned about the number of companies that have GSA schedule, but that are not winning, and they want to do something to help those businesses win more, right? And so contract vehicles, 8A certifications, they are golden. They're just a golden license to farm, not a golden ticket to hunt, right? I like to say the difference between farming and hunting is like this. If you're hunting, you basically sit somewhere, wait for the deer to walk by and shoot it. Not to be too violent, right? But if you're farming, which is what the 8A cert is in the contract vehicle, then you have to prepare that land, and then you have to prepare the crops that you want to eat later and harvest later, right? So you have to prepare it. Then you have to tend to it for months through the whole season, and then you have to sit there and harvest it and sell it, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of activity that goes into that. You can find a whole training that I do. 8A contract or 8A certifications, contract vehicles, they are golden. They're just a golden opportunity to farm or to pursue the work you want. So here's 3 quick recommendations. First, find out who's using your vehicle or 8A. So I did a whole training, and I think you can go to govconchamber.com/8A if I'm lucky. And in there, you can see where I did this work for you. Which agencies love 8As? Well, you could do something similar by following that guidance to find out which agencies love your contract vehicle. Now that I said it, I know I've done training on that. And I show you how to find out if you have this vehicle, who's winning. Second thing is build relationships without expectations. What this means is when you find those people and those agencies, get in there, start talking to them. Talk to them in a 12-month cycle. Don't think you're going to go in and get something right away. None of us want that. But if you look at the long-term perspective and say, hey, I want to build a relationship over the next 12 months that leads me to 12 years of working relationship together, then when you build those relationships, you'll hear about opportunities that go on your contract vehicle or maybe go to 8A, direct award, or set aside. And the last one is learn how to capture opportunities. And what I mean by this is understand the process of business development, of identifying and hearing about opportunities. And then as you're responding to sources sought, for example, it's entering into capture, and you want to get in and find those people who are related to the opportunity, whether they're industry or government. You want to find that information. But when you learn about that, then you're helping yourself ensure that your 8A certification and your contract vehicle, which both took time to get, are going to be worthwhile to you because you understand how to push an opportunity to your vehicle or to the 8A cert. So remember, not a golden ticket to hunt, but a golden ticket to farm would be a better way to think about that. Here's what I want you to remember from today, just really around this skill, right? Everything in government contracting is a skill. And so if you learn the skill, like I talked about FPDS as an example, if you learn that skill and really understand it, study it, and then practice it over daily, right? Practicing that 15 minutes a day. If I'm doing Irish step dancing, I practice 15, 30 minutes a day, and I will get better and better. Do the same thing with the government contracting skill sets around things like FPDS, and you will become really good at finding the opportunities that you can and want to win, and then be able to go after them. If you're interested in work with us, just go ahead and put workshop in the chat, but only for companies if you're doing like 2 million plus. It's a BD accelerated workshop. Otherwise, we have this and we have GovCon in the box for everybody else. So go check out GovCon in a box. And as you head into the week, as we're heading into the end of the fiscal year here, just remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.